am.
All right, perfect. Florent, thanks so much for taking time to do this fun interview. We thought it'd be a great opportunity with Dreyfus Ashby and our partnering wholesalers and the trade to kind of pull some questions and get to know more about you and the family, the history, the vineyard, the winery, etc. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a couple minutes and kind of updating us with what's going on at the winery this spring.
So Grant, it's a pleasure to share my love of La Solitude and to talk with you, as I cannot be with you in the US this year, so it's a nice way to keep going on that.
Perfect. And
so,
where are you right now?
So I'm right in the old tasting room, and you can see on the back a lot of very old book from my ancestor, the old painting of the city of Avignon, and I really love this room because it's a big part of the history of my family, who is right there. You don't see, but I'm in front of all the painting of my ancestor, so a bit of pressure, you know.
Very cool. So
to do it right.
Sales history. You're the 8th generation, correct?
Correct.
And at what age did you find out that you wanted to join the family business?
So I think I ever knew I want to be in this business, but as a teenager, you know, and as a young man, it's difficult to take this decision. So it's a lot of weight in the shoulder to take the family business. So actually, I really decide and I really start to be involved when sadly my grandfather died, early 2000. And it's quite a special period for me because I was student at the university, but in something completely different. I'm actually, before to be winemaker, I'm a specialist in tropical rainforest. So nothing linked to wine, only linked to plants.
Okay.
So I was traveling all across the tropical forest of the world. And when my grandfather died, he gave me his wallet and with all the money and all his paper inside. And he told me, you need to go back. We need to have someone who will keep going with La Solitude. So I stopped my my master of biology and go to the winemaking school for 2 years. And I travel a little bit in Australia, New Zealand. I work in big company over there, and I go back to La Solitude to work. That was in 2008, and I have no regrets. I'm very happy and very pleased to be where I am, and I'm proud of what I'm doing.
Love it. Your family history is something really special, and every time I show your wines out in the trade, might sound a little bit crazy, but I tell buyers, the Lancon family, it's almost like a Game of Thrones historical thing where
yes, it's a bit like that. I agree.
And so forth. So would you fill us in on kind of a more full history on the family going back to Italy?
Yeah, I think we are there. We are in the wine industry since ever. So if you look to my label, that all the history of the family is on the label, and the beginning of our story, yeah. That's the label. The beginning of our story in Châteauneuf-du-Pape start early 17th century. Because no, I'm Lancon, but my ancestors were named Barberini, and it's quite a famous and important family in Italy. And one member of the family was named Pope Urban VIII. That was early 17th century, and he was accused of nepotism. But that was true because most of the members of the family, when he was Pope, were put at very nice place like ambassador, like cardinals. And when he died, 5 years after, the new family who was in charge of the papacy want to take the place. So two solutions: kill all of us, and I will not be there, or send us away. And so he chose a nice one. He sent us to France as ambassador. And I don't know exactly why, but some of my ancestors settled down in a small village close to Malocène, and they start something we call alchemistry. And there is still a ghost house in Malocène, and there is a lot of story about this house, of the Barberini house. And one member of the family fall in love with Françoise de Loum, who was living in Châteauneuf, and they bought La Solitude. That was around 1625, 1624. I still have the buying act. So, and what makes us special, it's we are the only winery of the only domain of Châteauneuf and part of very few domain, I think in the Rhône Valley, who have never been sold and continuously produce wine under the same name. So we are one of the, we have some of the oldest label of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And I decided to, I don't know if you see well, to reedit the label as Vin de la Solitude.
And those come in 3-pack wooden boxes. I mean, the United
Yes.
States, what, 100?
So it's a very interesting wine. I just, yeah, we'll talk about that later, but it's really one of my favorite wine to make because the story is fantastic and the wine is delicious. So what you can ask us. It's
very cool. And the vineyard, it's situated, I mean, it's its own Ludi and it's on the western edge of Lacroix Vineyard. And I mean, what makes the land so special? I mean, you've got some really highly revered neighbors and so forth. So just tell us about the sense of place with where you are.
Yeah, so the Domaine de la Solitude is in the heart of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. We are located in the middle of our vineyard, and we have our own monopole called La Solitude. It's 12.5 hectares, and we start on Lacroix. Lacroix is one of the most iconic vineyards of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Most of the best producer own vineyards there. We go down on the Vallon of La Solitude and up on the Plateau du Beaucou. So we share some of the best land, and because we farm those land since 3 centuries, we have the time to really understood the place, understood our soil, and we have some very old vine. And I think the Vallon de la Solitude, I know you have been there. Mm-hmm. When you go there, you remember it's a special place. There is like special energy. It's really a beautiful place, and our vineyard are half on the galets roulés and half on the sandy soil, so we can find the structure and the power of the galet and the finesse and elegance of the sandy soil. So I think we kind of create a perfect balance between power, density, length, and softness and elegance.
And you're farming the whole vineyard 100% organic now?
Yes, so that was because my background from the university was really close to the nature. My first, challenge when I start to work, I say I want to be organic, and I really decided to go on the certification. We farm organic since 2008, but I decided to go on the certification 2 years ago because I really want to be the change. I think now there is no one who say anymore, oh, I'm not organic, I don't really care of the nature. But sometimes, you can take some shortcut. But me, I'm proud of what I do, and I want to be part of this change to show it's important to take care of what really feed me, because I'm really depending of the nature. And so we are into the process of the certification, and we'll put that on the label for the vintage 2021.
Oh, good enough. And that's actually the next question I was going to ask you. Sean Boucher of Young's Arizona was going to ask that, so that's great. And you've got your 9th generation, so you want to take care of the land and pass that down, which is wonderful. So, and I think it really translates in the wines as well.
Yes, of course. It's to me it's a short-term vision to not be organic, because I want my son and the son of my son to be proud of what I did. I don't want to have someone who say, "Oh, our land are a disaster because of our crazy ancestor who spray some herbicide everywhere." So I'm really into protect what I have, take care of what I have, and to do the best I can to give that to the next generation. And every morning I wake up and I'm looking to what I did and where I want to go. So now we have this organic certification, and I really want to go one step higher. So we are looking to have the biodynamic certification. So we will start the process this year. It's really an achievement for me. So I think that will be the end of the process. When you are biodynamic, I think you are at the peak of what you can do to be sustainable, to take care of your land. And I think they increase the quality of the wines. They bring some energy, they bring a new dynamic in the wine.
Love it. And then we've got a question from the sales team at Prestige that you plant, is it all 13 varietals?
Yes, I'm very proud of using the 13 grape variety. Because you know, Grenache, it's a dominant grape variety in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. I think 80% of all the vineyards of Châteauneuf-du-Pape are planted with Grenache. But at La Solitude, we grow all the 13 grape variety. It's important for 2 points. The first one, that bringing complexity in the wine. To use different grapes that create a balance. You know, some year you have some grape you do very well, and some year you have some other grape you do a little bit less well. Like last year was everything was good, but it's a fantastic year. But like 2008, for example, we had some bad blooming. We lose 80% of our Grenache, and we were very happy to have some nice vineyard of Syrah, Mourvèdre, and so to blend it together. But also when we are looking for the future, global warming, we already feel the effect. And Grenache, it's a grape variety, will reach a level of alcohol very high, 16, 17. So sometimes you need some nice grape to blend with that to create a balance. So when you use all the 13 grape, and that help you to have, you know, to know those grape and to know, like the Mourvèdre, for example, it's a grape variety we do better and better every year. So the global warming have a nice effect on the Mourvèdre. In the past, we are making 3 very good vintage out of 6. Now we make 3 fantastic vintage out of 5 with the Mourvèdre. So it's a grape variety I'm planting more and more. And if you don't grow Mourvèdre, you don't know that. Another example, it's the Counoise. The Counoise is a grape variety not well known. Like there is maybe, I don't know, 100 hectares of Counoise in the old world. But Counoise is like Senso. Those grapes have the capacity to be ripe at a level of alcohol of 12.5, 13. So when you blend that with your high level of alcohol Grenache, you create a balance and you can reach a level of alcohol on 14.5. What it's already high, but we are in Châteauneuf, you know.
But more deliciousness it brings to the wines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. And then, so you use like a lot of claret in your Côte de Rhône Blanc and so forth.
Yeah, in the Côte de Rhône Blanc and in the Châteauneuf-du-Pape also. Because I think claret, it's a grape variety will bring a lovely freshness. It's, you know, in the south of France, we have the ripening, but we have a problem with acidity. It's difficult to bring a nice balance in the white. So by using the claret, it's a nice way to bring in freshness by, not really by the pH, but by bringing what we call noble bitterness. It's a feeling of freshness. If you use only Grenache, I will produce a white Châteauneuf at 15, 15.5, and it's not something I want to do. Mm-hmm. So because I'm using the claret, and I'm blending that with the Roussanne, the Grenache, and also I'm introducing some new grape variety like Picpoul. Picpoul is not very, it's allowed in the 13 grape variety, but it's not that much grown in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But Picpoul is a little bit like a claret, bringing some nice acidity in the blend, and you can create a balance. So growing the 13 grape variety help you to choose and to see the future and to choose which grape variety will do the best in 10 years, 30 years. Because you have to remember, I'm working with at minimum 2 or 3 generation vineyard. My best vineyard now are the vineyards who were planted by my great-grandfather, like the one who were planted just after the phylloxera who do the cuvée Cornelia Costanza, my old vine of Grenache. They have been planted in 1890, 1895, we don't know exactly, but just after the phylloxera crisis. And so the vineyard I'm planting now will do their best for maybe the son or the son of my son. So it's always a challenge to see and to understand what would be the weather in 20 years. So by growing the 13 grape, I think we can handle this global warming problem.
Yeah, you really have to look ahead 30, 40 years. And with the vines that are 120, 130 years old now, how many more years can you harvest from those?
You know, a vine never died. If you take care of the vine, if there is no virus, maybe, I hope 200 more years, but we'll see. You know, I take a lot of, I give a lot of attention to those vineyards. There is the vineyard I'm thinking of, it's the vineyard I'm using for the Cornelia Constanza. And so that's my oldest vineyard of Grenache. And it's a magical place, you know, that may be one of the oldest vineyard we plant, but also the oldest vineyard we grow, because in the past, like 2 centuries ago, Châteauneuf-du-Pape was not only wine. We were producing olive oils, cherry trees, so polyculture. And those places who have been planted forever, they are like magic. The vine goes so well there, so they never die. And yeah, I really hope I will keep them for a long, long time. And even there is something interesting about that, is those vines, they represent the diversity of my vineyard because they are not clone. You know what is clone or massal selection, Grant? So to me, it's really important because now in the world, if you ask for Grenache to a nursery, you use maybe 30, 40 different clones, but all the world use the same. But so this vineyard was planted by grafting, made by my great-grandfather. And so that's the history of my family, because he chose those plants because they were doing well at that place. And so in the word terroir, there is, of course, the land, the exposure, the wind, the weather, but there is something we forgot about it. It's the raw material, the quality of, the genetic quality of the vine itself. So this vineyard is fantastic because it's creating some fantastic wine, but it's also the memory of the work of my ancestors. So I'm using those vines, to replant my new vineyard. So in fact, I keep the history on.
I love it. That's really neat. And there's some scuttlebutt in the US that you might be bottling a Gigondas pretty soon?
Yeah, so, you know, I'm always looking what is the next step. So now when I start to work, I want it to be organic. I'm done with that. I want to have a nice distribution around the world. With you guys in the US is perfect. Most of the countries in the world doing so well. So what is my next step? La Solitude, which I wanted to be around the top 10 Châteauneuf producer. I'm in it. So now I want to be the Rhone Valley for my client. So Gigondas, why Gigondas as a first other appellation? It's because I have some connection in Gigondas. The wine business is a small world. And so my wife, his family owns some land in Gigondas, and they are very good farmer, producer. And so we'll do something together, maybe. We'll start to buy some grape. To be true, on Monday, I'm trying the blend of the next vintage Gigondas, so 2019. And after Gigondas, I will go to Côte-Rôtie to do Gros Hermitage, you know.
Oh, so you go to
It's always nice to go further north.
Okay, I love it. That's fun. So, and you've got some pictures of the vineyard that you want to share, yeah?
Yes, so it's always better, as I have a very nice south of French accent. It's nice to see a video of what we are doing in the vineyard now. So I think, so that's a picture, that's a video just like 2 hours ago. You see the castle of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. We are in the middle of Galais-Roulet vineyard, old vine of Grenache. It's a 60-year-old vine of Grenache. I use those vineyards for.
And we were there last fall. I mean, you showed us when you go, I don't know, 5-6 inches below the rock, how much cooler the vineyard is, even in the late afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. That works like an insulate layer. The rock stores the heat during the day. So the first part, you can literally boil an egg on it. And if you dig like 30 centimeters, it's nice and fresh. So it's exactly what we want. To keep the canopy very warm and dry, and we need some water in the soil to keep the moisture, to keep the vine alive. So we just see on the video, we are at the blooming period. It's a very important period for all the producers around the world, but especially in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, because the Grenache is very sensible. We can lose all the production during those next 2 weeks. If the brewing going wrong, I mean, if the weather conditions are not good, the flower will not make any berries, and that happens very often. So
critical, yeah. So, and then what type of galets are these?
typical classic Galets Roulés from Châteauneuf. So it's just at the back of the winery. It's a classic. It's really what you expect from a vineyard of Châteauneuf. It's low density of plantation, old vine, bush vine, so no wire. The next video, it's another activity we are doing at the moment, disbudding.
Is that Claire at the winery?
Say again, sorry?
Is that Claire?
Yeah, so Claire, who's managing the office, she go in the vineyard also. Big thanks to her, because, you know, because of this pandemic, this COVID virus, the last 2 months were quiet at the office. So she's very kind, because she offered to go in the vineyard every afternoon. She's very good. So when you talk to Claire, she really knows his job. She knows the disbudding. She will be in the cellar during the harvest. And yes, it's a
very cool. And I must say, I think you have one of the best Instagram accounts for a winery. And a couple days ago, it showed tilling Roll de Galets, which was unbelievable to see. How deep is that going into the ground when you do that every time?
The Galets Roulés layer. So in fact, if you you have a layer of, at La Solitude, you have a layer of 600 meters of sand, and on the top of that, you have the layer of Galets Roulés. So those rocks will look all the same. They are made by silicate. They are all the same structure, mineral structure, and it's a layer of 3 to 4 meters with a mix of clay and rocks. And underneath you have the sand. So the layer of the clay and rocks keeps the moisture in the ground, and the sand is really it's a good drainage. So we always have the good amount of water in our ground. So the vineyard we see on the photo now, it's a sandy soil vineyard, and it's something we do at the moment because we are organic. We don't use herbicide, so we need to clean every single vine of the vineyard. It's a tough job. So I have 10 workers who do that full time for the next 2 months, because we are, at the moment, we are shaping the vineyard for the next harvest. What we are doing now makes the wine of 2020. Because in my point of view, it's all about the quality of the raw material, all about the quality of the berry you bring to the vineyard.
Mm-hmm. And how does the sandy soils and clays versus the galets, how does that translate with the wines as opposed to...
So it's, we see my cute dog. So just to go back on the difference between Galets and sandy soil, if you look at the vine we grow on the Galets, they are robust, big trunk, big vine, and so they produce massive tannins, a lot of concentration, a high level of alcohol. They bring the structure in the wine. And if you look on the vine we grow on the sandy soil, they are more elegant, and also you feel in the wine very soft tannins, very open on the nose, a bright fruit. So to blend the two is very interesting. And we see our new dog, Vineyard dog at La Solitude. At the back you see Yak, the senior manager of La Solitude, and Kea, the junior one.
Yeah, Bruce Cole with Dreyfus was asking about your pup, so this is great. You included a photo. So, and what's the significance of Yak's name?
Oh, it's Yak. It's the name of I don't know if you know those animals. If you go to Nepal in a Himalayan mountain, there is a cow, very stinky, and it's called Yak. Don't know that animal? You have to Google it.
It's a very biodynamic dog name, huh?
Yeah. And so Kea, it's the name of a bird who live in New Zealand. As I have some very good memory in New Zealand. The previous one, before Kea, was kiwi, like the fruit and the bird in New Zealand. So the next generation was called Kia.
Love it. So, and then back to the vines with how it's being grown, is everything in the Gobelets style at the vineyard?
So in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, by the AOC, we have to grow the Grenache, the Mourvèdre, the Cinsault. Most of the grape variety need grow as bush vine. But for some other grape variety like a Syrah, the Syrah, because the new grow very long, and because of the wind, we need to use wire. So most of the vineyard, I would say 80% of my vineyard is grow as bush vine and 20% on wire. But to me, it's really important for the Grenache to use the Gobelet, because Grenache is a very special variety. You need time before to sorry, I just get a text message. Yeah, so the Grenache, it's a variety we need some time before to be good. So it's why it's so important to work with old vine. And the only way to have some old vineyard is to grow them as, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, with the wind, with a very dry condition, is to grow them as bush vine. If I grow Grenache on wire, they will be dead after 50 years.
And is that the same for what you're going to be getting from Gigondas?
Yes, the vineyard in Gigondas I will use are grown bush vine.
Okay. All right. We have your label pulled up. Can you kind of run us through the significance of everything?
So this label was designed by my grandfather just after the Second World War, and it's that remember all the story of the family. So you see the two red hats on each side of the label. There's a symbol of the two cardinals who came to France, early 17th century, and you see a big, like brown, black hat in the middle. That's a symbol of the hat. That's a symbol of Urban VIII. So the Pope in the family. And after, below, you have the three bees. Not fly. It's very important. I'm very upset when people say that fly, they are bees. That's a symbol of the family Barberini. So if you look on the history, to have bees as a symbol, it's a very strong symbol, because the bees, they are very strong fighter. They have a lot of commitment to the king or the queen. So people think, oh, you have bees. It's not very, no. It's better to have bees on the coat of arms than to have dragons. Give a kick in a beehive, you will see, you know. And so if you look around the three bees, you have at the bottom, you have a medal that's Légion d'honneur. So that's the highest distinction in the French army, because from my grandfather's side, they were involved in the army. So at the back, I can show you something. Do you see that well?
A little bit closer.
So you see that's Berlin. So one of my ancestors was governor of Berlin during the Second World War. So you see the American one, the English one, the French one, and the German one. He was general. And so by using this symbol at the bottom of the label, there was a sign to the family who was in the army. But not anymore. No, we are very pacifist.
And I don't think we have a slide on the, keep going on this now that we have it pulled up.
So, and if you look on each side below the green, below the red hat, you have that's the scarf of the two cardinals on each side of the label. Okay. And of course, we have some very Gothic character with gold. So it's very classic from Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And on the top, we have Famille Lancon. It's something new. I think I want to establish our name on every of our label.
Bigger font.
So, yeah, no, not bigger font. It's family, it's not bigger font. No.
Love it. So, and then for the original label, the Vin de la Solitude, there's 4 different iterations of that?
Yes. If you can, I can show you. Don't know if you see. No, I don't see well. It's difficult. So,
good.
So you see this one, that's the original printing piece of paper from this label. So it's from the 1750. And at the beginning, we were thinking that's one single label because we forget a little bit the history of this. And in fact, we had a specialist who came because this is one of the first labels of the world. So he was interested and he told us the price of the paper was so expensive. So they were using very small label. So now that's the bottle. So I did some research on the way we were making the wine at that time. And I decided to recreate a blend and a winemaking way like it was made 2 centuries ago. So it's completely, you know, I've been to winemaking school and it's completely the opposite of what I've been told. It's very long maceration. It's 70 days of maceration instead of the classic 20, 25 days or 30 days if you are, you know, if you want big wine. It's a co-fermentation of all the grape variety together because it's simple. At that time, no disclaimer, no stainless steel tank. People were working in small crew, no, only the family and few workers. It was not possible to bring people from, you know, from far. And so they were making the wine in a completely different way. And when I start to work on that, on the first, you know, first year, you know, when you are in the winery, you work with a consultant. And like after the first 40 days of maceration, everyone was thinking, oh, Florent, you are crazy, what are you doing? This wine will be undrinkable. It will be just over extract. But in fact, we find something very interesting. After those first 40 days of maceration, we have basically we extract everything. So the wine is completely undrinkable, too much tannins. But after 50 days, the wine start to have finer tannins. Again, the wine start to be softer, more elegant. And you know what? There is a kind of polymerization, natural fining will happen. And after like 60, 70 days, you have a wine very elegant, very aromatic, completely the opposite of what you expect. So it's very interesting to find out. You can do very long maceration, over extract, and have something very soft, very elegant. And also in this wine, I'm using a lot of Counoise. We were talking about that earlier. Because before the phylloxera crisis, the vineyard was not planted only with Grenache. The vineyard were planted with all the 13 variety, and the Grenache one was one of them. It was not dominant. So I decided to use all the 13 variety together and co-ferment them. So you have something you think it's more classic than the classic Chateauneuf, in fact. That was made before the classic style of Chateauneuf was creating. Because the wine we're drinking now, they are style made after the Second World War. So it's a piece of history.
On a typistic vintage, I mean, how long would you cellar that for before drinking it?
In fact, my first vintage was 2016, so it's very new. But I can tell you, this wine is drinking well since the beginning because the tannins are very soft and elegant, and because of we do a so long maceration, I think the wine is very stable. It will age forever, but we will see. I will tell you in 10, 20 years if I was right, but I'm very confident.
Perfect.
So I can recommend to store this wine 2-3 years before to drink it, but I'm very confident in 20 years, it will be fantastic. And so I'm working on a white blend with this wine. So 2020 will be the year where we will do a white Vin de la Solitude.
Oh, very cool. And what are we looking at here?
So we have a view from this very old vine of Grenache, the 130-year-old vine of Grenache. planted by my great-great-grandfather. It's one of my favorite vineyards. We use this vineyard to do the Cornelia Constanza.
Which is another very small production that you do, and I think US,
yes,
you know, maybe a couple pallets every year.
Yeah, in fact, I'm producing 3,000 bottles of this wine, and I don't remember how much was shipped in the US, but it's not too much. In fact, this wine, it's I really want to. I'm not able to do that, but it's like if I'm putting the berry straight in the bottle. I want to show with this wine what was the vintage at La Solitude, and I want to really show the purity of the fruit, the quality of the tannins. It's all about the quality of this vineyard. With obviously, it's a fantastic vineyard. There is very few vineyards like that in the world, and it's my treasure. And so we see the winery at the back. It's a nice view from our new cellar. The next one. And you see, this picture was on my Instagram account, as you say, because I'm not traveling anymore. I have plenty of time to work on my social network. And we see the Mont Ventoux at the back. And that was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember.
That's beautiful. So, and it's all gravity fed at the winery with the destemmer and so forth when you harvest?
Yeah, so my grandfather was, in fact, every generation you build a winery. So I build a new one, but in the same way of working than the previous. We use only gravity. It's, to me, that's the best way. Because we own all the vineyard around, there is 30 minutes maximum, maybe 35, between the time the grape is picked, then the grape arrive in the tank. And so we pick everything in box of 20 kilo, and we use what I call a conveyor. So it's a very simple machine to bring the grape on the top of the tank and that fall down. So there is no crushing, nothing. So the grape, the berry, when they arrive in the wineries, are pristine, they are perfect.
And then you're doing stainless and concrete, and then you've got is it 2 big eggs?
So yes, most of the red, they are fermented in concrete because that's a tradition in the Rhone Valley. Actually, there is no scientific explanation for that, but make a wine in stainless steel, red wine in stainless steel, and the same wine in concrete, completely different. There are more deepness. I don't know. It's different. There's something magic with the use of the concrete. So all the red are fermented in concrete. I use some small wooden tank for the Vin La Solitude. It's a very special tank I'm creating for this wine. And for the white, it's mostly stainless steel and barrique. We do a lot of barrel fermentation. I think we make the white wine in a really Bourguignon way, because we do the malolactic fermentation, we do some long aging. If you look at most of the white Châteauneuf du Pape, they are early bottle, like in January, February. We start to bottle the white like in 2 weeks actually. So we do proper aging and we do the malolactic fermentation. I think it's, people are afraid to do the malo in the Rhone Valley because they're afraid to lose acidity. But there is something interesting behind that. When you pick ripe berries, there is no more malic acid inside. So when you do the malolactic fermentation, you don't lose any pH. You just gain some complexity, you integrate the taste of the oak, and I think you gain some aging potential. And so also on the Châteauneuf du Pape white, I do the malolactic on the Roussanne, and I keep the claret in stainless steel tank to keep the freshness and the brightness of the juice. And I do also some orange wine. So in the white Châteauneuf, there is in the 2018 vintage, there is I think 6% of orange wine. And in the 2019, there is 2.5% of long maceration. It's also to give some complexity, you know.
Oh, interesting. I had no idea.
But I don't say it, you know, because I'm not producing orange white Châteauneuf du Pape, but a little bit in the blend, you know, it's interesting. Yeah. And also I do some we have a chance in Châteauneuf-du-Pape is to be able to blend so many different varieties. And I think each of them, you can find like a specific way to change them, to put them at the best. So for the Grenache, for example, there is it's 100% full lees. So I mean, I press the berries directly in the tank, no racking, no débourbage. It's something very special. Nobody does that. And I find out that the best way to bring the Grenache, you know. For the Claret, 1 part in stainless steel and 1 part in long maceration. For the Roussanne, 100% aged in new barrel with malolactic fermentation. And when you have all those separate compounds and you blend them together, you can create the balance and the style you want. It's part of the richness of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You can drink 50 different white, 50 different style.
Love it. So, and then question for what you're drinking at home. I mean, if you look back at, let's say, the last 25, 30 years, what are some of your favorite vintages and why?
They're all my children, you know. But there is one of important to me is 2006, because 2006 was between 2005 was a blockbuster and 2007 another blockbuster. So the journalists, they cannot say 3 vintage in a row are fantastic. So 2006 was a little bit underscore. Okay. But in fact, that was a vintage with a fantastic balance. There was not too much power, too much concentration, but great freshness. And because we have the richness of the Châteauneuf-du-Pape, you know, we don't have any lack of concentration. But sometimes to have a fantastic vintage, you need to bring acidity. And this 2006 was always drinkable. And after now 14 years, still fantastic. Yes, it's one of my favorites. And after, I think last year, 2019, is the best vintage I ever did. Like it's from another world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm very excited to put this vintage in bottle.
You can see it in your facial expression how excited you are.
No, it's true. It's really, yeah. It's a vintage with concentration. You know, most of the best vintage, they are always between a disaster and between fantastic. So 2019 was very dry. Weather conditions were very dry. And so we were close to do something overripe, over extract, but something happened beautiful. We get 50 millimeters of rain like early September. So the grapes were in perfect condition. And for the one who have weight like us, after 1 month of full sun. So water in the ground, the level of alcohol not increasing too much. You can pick when you want. So, because, you know, it's you work all the year and it's in 3 weeks, the 3 weeks of the harvest, you gain or you lose. So you gamble against the nature. You have all your tank empty and you say, oh, should I pick my grape today? Because there is some rain in 3 days, but my wine will be better if I pick in 4 days. What do? You gamble. If you have nothing in your tank, sometimes you pick a little bit to be sure you have some money, and sometimes you wait. Mm-hmm. And this vintage was all good. No need to gamble. Really pick when I want. So
you went all in and it completely paid out.
Yeah, I was relaxed, happy, and I can do. And the quantity were nice also. So.
Well, we're very excited to try those wines next year when they get released. And Florent, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to get together and answer all these questions that were submitted. It's going to be great for the Dreyfus sales team and our partner wholesalers and the trade. So thank you. Probably won't see you this year, but hopefully.
Yeah, next year I hope to.
Which would be great. Or have you in the Northwest, and I'll feed you a bunch of oysters. It'll be wonderful. So thank you so much. If anybody has any further questions, what's the best way to reach you?
Oh, just send me an email.
Okay.
Send me on Instagram. Ask me something. I will answer. On Facebook, I will be pleased to answer any question.
Perfect. Love it. All right, Florent. Thank you so much.
There was a pleasure to talk with you, and I hope I was not too confused. You know, it's difficult to speak, you know, in front of camera, so I did my best. And
I'd say you nailed it.